Good morning. Welcome again to Morning Devotions, and thank you again so much for the privilege of being able to spend time with you every day as we go through the Bible this year. I'd like us to close out the book of Ephesians and talk about something that I almost never talk about. So we won't go back to Psalms or Proverbs or Isaiah today. We'll stay in Ephesians because I never talk about this. I don't like to talk about this. We're going to talk about the devil. Now, forgive me, but I'm not a person who likes to preach about the devil. I like to preach about Jesus. He's the winner. I think sometimes the greatest insult you can do to your enemy is to ignore him. And so I ignore him because, you know what? He's of no consequence to me. Jesus defeated him. But I also need to recognize that Satan has plans, and there are times that Satan launches those plans. Now, we'll start reading in verse 10 of chapter 6. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the full armor of God so that, why do we put on the full armor of God? So that, we always circle so that, you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. All right, Satan will have a scheme for your life. He has a plan. He has sat around with his little demons and his authorities and principalities and powers, and they've dreamed up plans for your life. Just as God has a plan for our life, Satan has plans. God has a plan to prosper us and not to harm us, plans to give us hope in the future. And the devil's schemes are always to steal, kill, and destroy. So God gives you this great vision, and you're moving forward into your vision. But you also need to understand that Satan will launch a counter scheme, a counter plan. Now continue reading with me. Verse 12, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers and against authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything to stand, stand firm. So there is a day in which evil comes. There is a day in which Satan launches his scheme. He launches his plan against your life. Now, it's fascinating to me that the Bible doesn't say to attack. It just says stand your ground. Please forgive me. I want you to notice the subtlety of that. God doesn't tell us to put on the full armor of God and attack. He tells us to put on the full armor of God and stand your ground. There's nothing he can do to hurt you. He is a defeated foe. His armies had all of their weapons taken away at the cross. Remember what Paul teaches us in Colossians. It is not about you and I learning how to fight with the devil. It's about you and I learning to take a stand, and having done everything to stand, stand firm. Now, I want to challenge you today. Read through this passage and remember the full armor of God. Remember to take up the shield of faith with which you can quench all the fiery arrows of the evil one. Remember to put on your feet the gospel of Jesus Christ. These are special military boots that the Roman soldiers used to wear so that they wouldn't slip and slide on a muddy battlefield or a bloody battlefield. Put on the full armor of God. Stick your feet in the ground and say, I will not go backwards in my life. Now, hear me now. I will not go backwards in my life. On the day that evil comes, when Satan launches his scheme, everything is about pushing you backwards in your life. And you have to decide, no, I do not go backwards. I refuse to go backwards. I will stand my ground. I do not retreat, and I do not return. I stand my ground, and having done everything to stand, I stand firm. Now, there is the day that evil comes. Jesus has won the victory. You just stand your ground.